Hello, everyone. I'm Jean Chatzky. Welcome to Your Money Map, sponsored by the Alliance for Lifetime Income. I'm very excited about the conversation we are going to have today. I know that over COVID, and especially over the past couple of months, there have been a flurry of news reports digging into the fact that many people who left the workforce during the coronavirus pandemic did so not necessarily because they wanted to, but because they were involuntarily retired. Somebody else, a health situation, an employer, caring for somebody else in the family made that decision for them. And now that the pandemic, keep our fingers crossed, has settled down at least a little bit, it's time to strategize. It's time to think about what to do. It's time to think about how to make your resources last as long as you do, but also what you want to do with this next phase of your life, how you want to get back to the workforce, how you want to strategize. Maybe you want to start your own business at this point. Maybe it's time for that. My guest today is Kerry Hannon, and I have known Kerry for so many years. She is an author, a career strategist, a personal finance expert. You have seen Kerry just about everywhere. You've seen her in the New York Times, on MarketWatch, Forbes, Next Avenue, and we are so glad to have her here with us today. Kerry, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me.
Well, it's wonderful to be here, Jean. You know, it's just great to be on this with you. And I admire your work so much. What a pleasure.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much. I know that this is something that you have really been watching with your eagle eye the past 15, 16, 17 months as we've come through this interesting time in history. What are you seeing as far as people leaving the workforce by choice or not by choice?
Well, actually, you know, it's been a huge, and we see this sort of, they call it the Great Resignation or something. I mean, a lot of people are resigning from jobs because they've taken the time to ponder and think about what they want to do next in their life. During the time that we were in shutdown and during the pandemic, it was a real soul searching period. That said, so we have that segment of the population saying, what is it? Do I want to change careers? Do I want to start a business? What is it that I want to do today? There are others who did lose their job during the pandemic who are struggling to get back into the workforce. So we've got two sort of trends going here, but I see some overall things coming out in how the workplace is changing.
Can we, when we look at these people, the sort of the two groups of them, how are they situating themselves right now? I mean, are they looking at the workforce and saying, I want to get back in? Are they looking at the workforce and saying, not for me anymore? I mean, are they of one mind, or again, is it sort of many different people on many different paths?
It's so hard to make a generalization, but I honestly think there are a whole segment of people that actually were offered an early retirement package during the pandemic, and they were at the age where it made sense maybe to step away, not sure where they were going. So they did take that path. Or if they lost their job, they said, you know, why don't I just go ahead and call this retirement? But I honestly believe some of this is just a taking of a breath, because I am a real believer in work as something we do as part of our retirement, as a pillar of our retirement planning in some fashion. And I do think with longevity and people needing to, you know, it's not just one, you know, maybe you're in your 60s, 50s, your lifespan can go to 100. So for gosh sakes, you've got a lot of years to live and finance and so forth. So I'm seeing maybe a pause right now, but I do think we're going to see people entering back into the workforce, maybe in a different form.
I totally agree with you. And I actually discussed this with my husband a lot, because I feel like if I'm not producing, and maybe this is just me being tied up in my work, but I kind of do feel like if I'm not producing, I don't know exactly who I am or what I'm doing, right? I don't know exactly where I stand or how I feel. And I think that there may be a lot of people out there like me. I want to take a quick pause just to bring in our audience because we are live streaming on both Facebook and LinkedIn. I can see that some of our frequent flyers are already on board and watching us. Hi to Precious and to Gerald. Hi to Hamid. So glad to have you guys. If you have questions for Kerry, who, by the way, is an expert on so many things, but particularly an expert on your career after the age of 50, but also working from home, starting your own business, all sorts of threads like that, please put them in the chat. We would be happy to address them and happy to answer them. Hello to Riva. We're glad you guys are here. So they're taking a pause right now, and then you think they are going to perhaps re-enter. Many of these people, I have heard you say, are starting their own businesses. What does that look like when you start a business after a quote unquote retirement?
Yeah, I actually I find this really exciting because I think it's a time in life where if you've saved adequately, if you have some financial cushion and you can get started doing something that you've always wanted to do, maybe it's something from a hobby or a passion, something you set aside because for gosh sakes, you had a lot of things you needed to attend to during, those major earning years, whether putting kids through school or mortgages, whatever. Now's your time. And so this is exciting. And I do see people saying, okay, what is this I want to do? And most of them are not just jumping in and starting something. They're taking their time. They're doing their homework to see. And I encourage, these are the basic questions: is why me? Why now? Why this product or service? So you don't just make a rash move into starting a business. Of course not. But today, with the opportunity to have virtual businesses, wow, it doesn't have to cost a lot to start your own business.
How do you recognize when something is a business versus a hobby?
That's the thing. I used to always caution people, do not start a business from your hobby. Really, you're going to ruin your hobby. But the truth is, they've shown that people who start a business from a hobby, often it takes a while for it to get up to speed. So they start a little slower, a little like the tortoise and the hare. But once they get going, they are super successful because, you know what? They've been the customer. They know who it is, who buys their product or their service. And so it's kind of knowing that you can still hold on to the love of what it is and do it every single day.
I remember being in an audience once with a very famous financial advisor, and he went around the room and he asked people, "Why do you have a business? Why do you have a business? Why do you have a business? Why do you have a business?" And he must have gone through the whole room until he got the answer that he was looking for, which was to make money. Not all businesses, or not all things that we can do, even things that we can do well, have the ability to generate a profit for us. What sort of a litmus test do you have to put your hobby or your idea through in order to figure out if it's got legs?
Yeah, you're not going to maybe know that immediately. You certainly need to do a very good business plan. I recommend people talk to, if possible, advisors with SCORE, which comes out of the Small Business Administration. These are retired executives and so forth who have been in business themselves. They're not universally fantastic. You might have to try a couple. But if you can find somebody to kind of hold your hand a little bit and really make you ask just what you did, Jane, those dark questions, those deep questions, can you make money at this? So if you're not making money at it, then it probably is a hobby or it's something altruistic that you're doing for the good of the world. And that's perfectly fine. So, you don't want to tap into retirement funds for this sort of thing as well. So you need to do that financial fitness piece. Are you lean and mean? Can you take a year at least or two where you can put money back into the business that it's making to give it a chance to grow, to let it get some traction? And that's a good way to do it. So you want to make sure you've carved out that fitness piece financially in order to do so.
When we talked prior to this conversation, you said that a lot of the people going down this path are women. Why do you think that is?
Well, women are one of the fastest group of entrepreneurs, particularly over the age of 50. And you know why? Because they can't get a job, right? I mean, the hiring market, the ageism, the gender bias, it is really tough. If you've stepped out of the workplace for caregiving, if you've lost your job during the pandemic, trust me, and you're over 50, this is not an easy escape. So a lot of women just are like saying, enough, I'm tired of the rejection. I have an idea. I can, we got to say too, Jean, think about when we say we're entrepreneurs or we have our own business, this can be something as easily as freelancing, contract
Right.
work. I'm not saying you need bricks and mortar. I consider myself an entrepreneur running my own business, but in fact, I'm, some people might call me a freelancer or a contractor. So, it's how you cut and slice and dice the terminology. So you can easily start a consulting business if you have a talent or a skill that you've taken from your prior experience, and maybe build that into a business, partner up with somebody. Women are great at partnering up with other women and other, intergenerational businesses. They're more open to collaboration than men. That's the truth.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that was a really important distinction. That starting a business doesn't mean you're buying a franchise. It doesn't mean you're opening a store. It doesn't mean you have to make a physical product. If you used to be in an industry where you could do some consulting, where you could hang out a shingle, where you could get a client or two, that makes you an entrepreneur. And I'm with you. That's how I got my feet wet. Being an entrepreneur, I lost a job and I figured I had a couple of clients on the side. I was a very early side hustler. That became the framework and building block for my business.
It's so true, Jean. And you've done what I did, the same thing, because I freelanced all the time before I actually left my full-time job to start my business. So I had these clients. I never burned a bridge. So I still write for the people I wrote for when I was in my 20s. It's just absolutely fun. And the same publishers, actually. But I think what can happen is if you can reach back into your network and look for those contacts of people you've worked with in the past that might be interested in helping you, make some introductions to help you start that business. All you need often is a nice little website. That's maybe $2,000 or something, if that, right?
Yeah.
And you can have virtual helpers with your bookkeeping or your marketing, if you choose to do that, or your social media. So, back it down a little, take a breath, and take baby steps.
Your most recent book is called Great Pajama Jobs, which is a fantastic title. As you're thinking about those great pajama jobs that are still hopeful havens for people now as we come out of the pandemic, where would you point people? For those people, particularly women who have lost a job or have resigned, what are some of those great pajama jobs that we should be looking at?
A lot of these positions for women, the remote working jobs, and really it's for everyone, but if you have any way to get into the healthcare field, whether it's fundraising or marketing, sales, whether you're a great writer, communications, whatever it might be, look to that area because it's most open to mature workers. It's most open to the opportunity to do flexible work. And so I know that's a big term. Education is also an area that's looking for people. That's a really nice one. And the other area is actually interesting. Other companies that are startups that need someone with your expertise. Again, whether you're great at sales or writing or PR or, bookkeeping, accounting, any of those skills are needed by young companies getting started and small associations that maybe are looking for contract workers, for remote workers.
Yeah, you take those transferable skills that you've got and you use them where the jobs actually are, right? That's, I think, something that's so important because there are fields that have kind of dried up as we've gone more digital as a nation. But if you can take those skills and apply them in healthcare, in education, in the other fields that are hiring, it can go an awfully long way. We're getting some comments from people. First of all, hi to Frank. Thanks for joining us. And Elvin, Rachel says, my one tip is not to skimp out on the research phase. Find out what problem you're going to solve and if there are people willing to pay for that service. I think that's great advice. Carrie, how do you do that kind of research?
Wow, I love that. That is such a great tip because that's what it's all about, solving problems. So, you need to really it goes back to, Jean, that word networking, reach out to everyone and see what what they're seeing in the workplace. If there's an industry you're particularly interested, who do you know that's in there? Get on Twitter, get on LinkedIn, and follow some of these. Get involved in group discussions and see where the needs are, see where the problems that are happening for these companies, or the kinds of jobs they're right now posting for. See if you can get in through, if you know somebody at that company, see if you get in through the back door that way by making that personal connection. That's how you really find work. That's how you get hired. It's not applying virtually through job boards. Yes, you need that often to send your resume virtually. But the truth is, it's who you know that's going to get you in that door. So it's not that first person that you know necessarily, but who they introduce you to and moving forward. But it's taking the time to do those informational phone calls.
I want to jump over from your 13th book to your 14th book, or maybe it's your 14th to your 15th. Carrie has written many, many books, if you get my drift here. But her new book, the one that's coming out this fall, is called In Control After 50 Plus. When we talk about being in control after 50 plus, there's the workplace piece of it, but there's also the financial piece of it. What does it mean to be in control of your money after 50 plus?
I think the important thing to be in control of your money is to have that sense of, where your things are. You're not, perhaps at this time, you want to take the time to get financially fit in the sense that you don't have any big debts out in front of you. You don't have a lot of credit card debt. I know you've written about this a lot. When you don't have these big ticket items on top of your to-do list of things that you absolutely have to pay every single month, you can be lean and mean. It gives you that opportunity to start a business, to follow a dream in a certain direction, or try out a bunch of different things that you might want to do if you don't need a certain paycheck to meet that monthly nut. So I think it's critical to get real, and this doesn't happen overnight, but you really need to take a look at your budget. What do you have, what do you have in savings? Where do you stand? And take the time to do that housekeeping before you launch off into new directions.
Yeah, I've been actually very heartened to see how people are able to shift in their spending, to downshift in their spending, to pivot if they have something else that they want to do, to move somewhere where it's less expensive, or to live somewhere that is slightly smaller, to reduce the expense load, which essentially just gives you more choices. Because the bottom line is that you and I, again, Carrie and I had a nice long conversation before we got on the air with all of you, but we were talking about the fact that, we live a really long time. My parents are in their 80s, your mother's in her 90s. We need our money to last us a long time, and that means having some sort of a plan in place.
Oh, and without question, and women in particular, need to prepare that there's a good chance you might be aging solo. You might be a widow, you might be divorced. And I tell you, I don't know about you, Jean, but in my age group, so many of my friends are now divorced in their, late 50s, early 60s. And, it's not, you still got 20 odd, 30, 40. You got a lot of years ahead of you. So you have to take care of yourself, really. And each individual, men and women, yes, if you're in a partnership, fantastic. But always remember to keep track of your own money and what you're doing, what you've got set aside.
Well, what does that mean exactly? When we think about our accounts, right? Often bank accounts may be merged, they may be mingled. Usually our retirement accounts are separate because that's the nature of the beast. How often should we be checking in on our money? How often should we be doing those projections of when we might retire and what it might cost us to live in retirement? And because I'm asking a really long question anyway, do we all have to plan for this potential scenario where we are retired by surprise sooner than we expect?
Yeah, that's the big jolt, isn't it? If that happens, it truly is a jolt. So you're hoping that you've consistently been doing these things throughout the year. I think, sitting down, if possible, if you have a financial advisor or financial planner, I do at least twice a year. But if you can, at least, if something freaks you out about the market and you have investments, we all do through our retirement plans at least, and you're really nervous, make sure it's somebody you can pick up the phone that will hold your hand for a minute or two and say, don't, everything's going to be okay. We have you perfect. You're balanced for your age and your investments. You're protected. And that's what you need. You want to have a balanced portfolio of investments that you can weather some sort of ups and downs in the equities market, and you have some cash on hand so that you have a little bit of ballast. And yeah, the road's going to get rocky. You may get hit by a medical bill that you didn't expect, right? So you need to make sure you have some of these things. And again, it's a process, but it's one we have to, it's like a great garden. You've got to tend it, in a consistent way. So a big lookout would be twice a year. I think, once a month isn't a bad time if you're in a partnership with somebody to sit down and let's have a financial dinner. I mean, it sounds really boring, but I know you talk about this too. Sit down and have a money date, and it doesn't have to. I get a stomach ache thinking about it, but I still
Me
do.
too.
And you think, and use that time not just to be like harsh or this is what we have, it. What are our dreams? What do we want to spend money on this year? Do we have, like for me, I've got a niece got married last month. I've got a nephew getting married in September. These are young people I want to support with a nice gift. Hopefully I'm traveling to their wedding, that kind of thing. And so you want to set money aside to do things, or when we all get through this certain pandemic period and we really can feel comfortable traveling again, certainly it's something that enriches our life, and being able to have experiences in your life versus even material things. These are the times to have these conversations like, let's dream a little. Where might we want to live when we do retire? Let's start thinking, and and then when you attach money to that, you're like, oh, I got this. Now I've got a goal,
Yeah. When the words come first and the pictures come first and the dreams come first, then it's easier to actually deal with the numbers, which are the hard part for a lot of people on the back end. Gerard says, take a deep breath and think long term. And I think that is really, really good advice. Think long term, but make sure that you've got some sort of plan in case the rug gets ripped out from under you in the short term, right?
Yeah. And Jean, I know this isn't maybe a question that's on your thing, but I saw when I was following some of the Twitter feed before our talk today, and there was a question that came up about, and this is not my favorite topic, but I think the people on with us today might be interested, is Social Security, right? Mm-hmm. So if you were set off into retirement this past year and you're nervous, and you decided to start Social Security benefit, or you're questioning whether you should do that. And then you and I are sitting here talking about, get a job, go work, follow your dream, how does it work? And it's complicated. But one thing I think everyone needs to remember is there's something called the Social Security's earnings test. So that if you started to take your retirement benefit, you can only earn a certain amount of money through work. Only if you've done that before your full retirement age. So if you start taking, and that's usually 66 to 67 now. So that's only if you've tapped into Social Security, you haven't reached your full retirement age, and you're working. So a lot of people get all confused about what this means. Social Security has a pretty good description on their website about it. And if you want to add to that, I just think it is something that scares people. Also, if you do happen to lose that benefit, it's not, quote, lost. You will get it back. It's just
actually, that's where I was going to go. Can you explain that? Because I think a lot of people don't understand that. If you tap into Social Security early, you work, you earn some money, Social Security claws back some of Social Security because you're earning money. But how do you get it back on the back end?
Well, when you reach full retirement age and your benefits, then they gradually bump it back into your benefit each Social Security check. So they ratchet it up to recoup that. It doesn't happen in one great check. They're going to give it all back to you, but you do recoup it. So it's not lost money. It's simply, if you've had to start early and you're continuing to work, this is how they do it. And I'm not, the formula is a little Byzantine, but you truthfully, that's what it is. The earning test is about starting Social Security and working before full retirement age. Afterwards, earn as much as you want.
There are a lot of other benefits to working when you're, quote unquote, retired. Can we talk about those?
Yes, please. I love those, because it's it's the financial piece is important. Yeah, we all like, even if we've saved, we like that sort of safety net to know we can have this mad money, or we don't have to tap into our retirement account. We can take that trip. But it's the mental, it's the psychological, it's the feeling like you have a purpose, you're relevant, somebody cares about what you have to offer to the world. And that's magic, that is magic. I mean, you see that all the time, I know, Jean, and I get so excited about it. It's like, why not keep working?
I think it keeps you young. I think it keeps you engaged and interested. And yeah, it is very purposeful. It doesn't mean that you have to do the job that you were doing to earn the money that you used to pay your mortgage when you were 40. You can totally do something different. You can do the job that you love or that you're passionate about. But it by doing it, by continuing to work, you diminish the amount of money that you are pulling out of those retirement accounts. Maybe you can put off taking Social Security. The money that's in your retirement accounts has additional time to grow. And if we look at the markets this year, the past couple of years, the past decade, in fact, that is incredibly powerful. So I think it's just something. Do you think that that's a safe thing based on what we've seen this year with the resignation and with people being retired? Do you think that's a safe thing to build into your financial plan, that you will always do some work?
I honestly believe that. Not everyone is going to agree with me on that, but I like the security of knowing that my skill set is still sharp, that I still have something to offer. And that doesn't mean you can sit back and in today's world, things are changing so quickly, and you can't just sit back and say, oh, I can, find work based on what I've always done and what I've always known. You've got to be pushing that envelope and have a little bit of fire in your belly to keep this curiosity, to keep learning, keep pushing the envelope, because not only does that, every time we learn something new, our world, everything shifts. I mean, it gives you, learning is so energizing. So again, that's one great part of it. But the other part is you stay relevant in the job market. And so I put it in your back pocket as a plan to find that you're going to continue to work in some fashion. And certainly when it's going to work, the kind of lifestyle, work-life balance that would work for you. But in order to do so, you must continue lifelong learning. You can't just step aside and then step back in as if nothing ever happened, because things are changing way too fast for that.
Well, and the world of lifelong learning has really come into itself over the past couple of years. If you are looking for some additional skills training on a budget or for free, where would you suggest people go?
Well, I got to tell you, I think this is going up on LinkedIn, and so LinkedIn is amazing. I mean, LinkedIn Learning has some wonderful opportunities to build, help you with tutorials and get started in specific things. There even something as simple as great YouTube videos. There's the good videos there that's free. There Coursera and some of these programs like that. I think edX is one. You might know a couple of the other ones that offer free platforms to find education offered by some really big universities that are marginally priced or perhaps free. And so look around. There's lots up there, but today, especially through the pandemic, we saw virtual offerings just skyrocketing. So look in your particular industry to see if there are things available there as well.
A couple of other questions. First of all, Maria says, thanks for this conversation. Thank you for being here with us, Maria. Rachel gave us the link for Social Security, which is ssa.gov. If it's been a while since you checked your own Social Security statement and projections, it's a really good thing to do. You want to know how much money you are going to have coming in so that you can plan accordingly. Carla says, what other resources can we find to help us learn about finances? Books? Well, absolutely. And Carrie has some amazing books. Her most recent book is called, is it Pajama Jobs or The Best Pajama Jobs?
Great Pajama Jobs.
Great Pajama Jobs. And the new one is called In Control After 50 Plus. And I think, just FYI, that Jason Zweig in the Wall Street Journal on Saturdays is required reading.
I totally agree. And Jonathan Clements has some wonderful books out too that are personal finance, that are very basic and not talking down to you, but very, that makes it, simplifies it. And Jean, your work as well. I mean, clearly.
Thank you.
But there are some excellent books out there now. And if you're, I mean, Beth Kobliner's from a slightly younger age group, perhaps, but it's still basic. It's advice that we all can use.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm a fan of all of those writers. When we talk about being in control after 50 plus, part of what we are trying to do here is to have the conversation about making your money last, making sure that there's enough money to go the distance. What are your favorite strategies?
You know, I just think we sort of touched on this earlier, is really make yourself do those budgets. I mean, it is just excruciating. None of it, even the word makes you kind of roll your eyes. But if you can do that and really get a grip on how you're spending your money, it makes the future look much easier to manage. And if you can do that on kind of a regular basis, but at the very least, you know, kicking off January, this is the best time to say, how did I spend my money last year? Or when you're starting to do your taxes, believe me, that's all in front of you. And it can be hugely depressing when you start looking at what you spent your money on the year before. So, or it can be like, wow, I was really great about this. So hopefully that's what you're seeing. But that's where you start. You have everything pulled in front of you. So I think that budget is the best place to do it. And always just be very conscious of how you're spending your money. And you mentioned those tips, which were fantastic, about downsizing. If you're at the stage in life where the kids are launched or what have you, and you can downsize, and this real estate market is pretty crazy in most parts of the country right now, downsize to a smaller place, you know, a townhouse or something a bit smaller, where you don't have to have a big mortgage or no mortgage at all, or move to a part of the country after we get through this period that where the cost of living is more affordable. There's all kinds of little things you can do like that. It's not little at all, but steps we can take to sort of take back. So it's not a mystery. This is not a mystery, but the big piece is we don't know what the medical bills are going to be moving forward. And Jean, when I was talking about my mother's ill right now, and I looked at one of the monthly costs of care are extraordinary. And, you know, you have to, you know, this is something we don't know what that number is going to be when we get to that point or what have you, but it's not, I don't think it's going down.
No. And many people believe mistakenly that when it comes to long-term care, Medicare will step in and cover it. And it doesn't. No. It will cover 100 days and that's it. And so that means making some plans for those eventual long-term care expenditures, especially for women, because we outlive our spouses, we're likely to be alone.
Right. And oftentimes a couple's finances have gone and been depleted by caring for the aging spouse. So, and women, maybe not so much today, but they used to always marry men who were a few years older than them. So, you know, as they grew ill, a lot of the family finances went to pay for their medical bills. So when it comes to your medical bills, my goodness, I mean, you don't have the assets you once had. Not everyone, but this is a reality out there.
So what's your approach to long-term care?
See, I'm not probably the best person to ask about that because I've been very nervous about buying a long-term care policy for a lot of reasons. And so my husband and I just have been saving really very aggressively to be able to self-fund this period of our life. That is not something a lot of people can do. So that's why my caveat was, you know, but I think we've seen new products coming on the market that are going to make it much more easier to understand and will be there for us when we need them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one strategy is there are a couple of strategies that I like. One is to think about longevity insurance, which is essentially a deferred annuity where you put a chunk of money away at age 60 and don't tap into it and let it grow until you need that extra money for healthcare in your 80s. Personally, I bought a life insurance policy with a bucket of benefits that can be tapped for long-term care. So it's a permanent life insurance policy with a long-term care benefit, and so it can do double duty. But you're absolutely right.
I should add an HSA because yes. That's one thing I've done. We both have done is had, and that money can be used for medical expenses. It's not like our retirement accounts that we have to take the money out. That money can stay there and be available for us.
Or you can do as Gerard did. He says he never upsized, so needing to downsize was never an issue. What in writing and reporting this book in the last couple of minutes that we have together, what were your eye-opening findings? What were the things that really you and I've been personal finance reporters for a long time, and I got to tell you, I am still delighted when I learn something new that I can share with my readers and my listeners. I'm like, oh yes, something new for me to talk about. What surprised you? What got you? What are your favorites?
In terms of
the control at 50 plus book.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I saw a couple of major trends that are coming out of the pandemic in 2020 and where we are. The one that concerns me, and I wish I could say I'm so excited about this, truly concerns me, is the rise in contract positions, right? We talked about that as a good thing in a way for older workers, because you can work part-time, you can work for a season, for, whatever it might be. But for someone who really needs the benefits of a full-time job, the fact that I see employers kind of moving in the direction to offering more contract positions versus full-time positions, it's a really big cost saver for them, right? Because they're not offering. So it makes sense from an employer standpoint. They get great talent. They don't have to carry your health insurance, your retirement accounts, and sponsor those, that kinds of thing. But for the worker, if you're not ready and you need those benefits, this is a bit troubling, and it really throws it back onto the individual to be extra careful about spending, about being really disciplined about saving, and all of those things that you talk about a lot and I talk about. And it just drives the message home that this is the future. I really do see it going in that direction.
Do you legally, you think that employers will be continued will continue to be able to add people in this way, that there is no sort of move back toward unionization or any sort of protections for employees?
I hope there would be some, because I actually just saw a company that I still work for that just unionized the other day, the editorial workers. And I think it's interesting. And I would, that unions have gotten such a bad rap in this country, but heck, I mean, they've done so much for workers and workers' rights, and freelancers. The freelancers union has worked very diligently, because the companies can be very careful about, they cut off the number of hours and the amount of time just so they get under that threshold where they do have to offer you benefits. So again, this is something that it requires a lot of people banding together to say, hey, we really need, we need to have a better understanding of where this is going.
Okay. And you said there were two trends that were not that you tapped into.
Well, I love the entrepreneurship, the rise in entrepreneurship coming out of the pandemic. The remote jobs are the genie's out of the bottle. They're here to stay. I think it's fabulous. Remote work is fantastic for older workers, because, it fights ageism in big ways. You're not judged by your pretty cover, but you're judged by your production, your performance, the things that you should be judged on. And if commuting is a hard thing for you, if you have any kind of disability, yay for remote work. I mean, this is fantastic that employers are getting it. They know we can work, and it's really good for older workers. So I think that's incredibly important. And I love the trend of the rise in long lifetime learning, and the opportunities for adult learning that doesn't have to be expensive, like getting a master's degree or anything, but really important skills building opportunities to learn.
Love it. Kerry Hannon, thank you so much for this conversation. Tell us all where we can go to find more of your wonderful work.
Well, thanks. And Jean, thank you. It's really so delightful to be with you. The easiest way is to go to kerryhannon.com. That's KerryHannon.com. That's my website. I throw everything I write up there. Jean mentioned who all I work for. I've got that. My books are up there. And so, and if anyone has questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. I love hearing from people. So, and that's easy to find me at kerryhannon.com.
Thank you, Carrie. And thanks for everybody. Thank you to everybody for watching, and to the Alliance for Lifetime Income, who sponsors this series. If you are looking for more information, you can also go to our website. You'll find it at protectedincome.org. We'll see you next time.